Comrades, we hope you enjoyed watching our Kages Dorpi of the Year video just as much as we enjoyed making. We loved seeing your nominations for your Kages Dorpi in the comments. Belfast and Mpumalanga, we see you. Municipal corruption in small towns can be devastating, and watching the video you may have wondered, what can I do to improve the situation in my town? To get the answers, we chatted to Mbali Ntuli, the CEO and founder of Groundwork Collective. Take a listen.
Mbali Ntuli from Groundwork Collective, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm wondering if you can start by explaining to our listeners who perhaps haven't heard of Groundwork Collective, what it is and what the work is that you guys do.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always good to be with you guys and always fun. So Groundwork Collective is a non-profit organization that we started a few years ago, and we do a lot of work trying to instill civic education and participation to ordinary South Africans. We're very passionate about the fact that we have a great constitution and there's so much that we can all get a lot more involved in to contribute to our country, but often people don't know where to start or what to do. So we have a lot of projects and programs where we try to get the public involved in participating in the society. And I mean, some of the things we've done are registration campaigns with young people all over the country in really fun and cool, interesting ways. We do observer missions where we get ordinary South Africans to observe the elections with us. We've also done a lot of work into getting into schools and just really making our constitution, our laws a lot more accessible so that people don't feel powerless all the time or have to wait for politicians.
Yeah, and I think it's 2 years now until the next municipal government elections. Is that something that you guys are also focusing on? Because I know you did a lot of work around the national government elections with observers and with education.
So our work is in between elections, before elections, it's year round, because we don't think that these sort of conversations can just be had just before an election, because that's exactly what's gotten us into the trouble that we're in as a country, is that people sort of remember every 5 years that they have to participate, and then afterwards have a very hand approach and let politicians and political parties just run amok. So a lot of our work, like I said, is within schools and with young people who turn 60 every day. So from when we registered them, we started a curriculum of civic education with them, really teaching them how things work, because for us it's as important as financial literacy. If you care about your kids being able to know how to handle money, you should care about them knowing how to navigate the systems that exist in this country that can either be really good to help them or can really hinder them. So we do a lot of that work year round, but obviously when elections come up and we gear up towards having a lot of stuff that we do around elections. So of course we'll do another observer mission. Last elections, we had the most of the civil society organization volunteers who volunteered with us to observe elections. And we hope to increase that number for the local election.
I want to speak to you more about the what you're saying about people don't always realize that there's a lot that they can do and that it's not just about elections that you're focusing on. I think with us, we're looking at local government level and how, the audit results are terrible. In municipalities, there's basic access to services falling apart. And people might just throw their hands up. But what can people do? What is in our constitution and in our laws? How can they get more involved?
Because we have such a participatory democracy, and it was done that way, specifically our constitution, because of the past of this country. We wanted to make sure that we would never have a situation again where decisions are made just by politicians or just by small elites of people. So if anyone's interested, particularly when it comes to local government elections, you have a say in what happens on your very street. You have to then make sure that you understand when your IDP process is and the budgeting process on your municipality. All of these are by design and by law meant to come up to public participation. So they call out to communities to come to their ward committees, and maybe then you just take it a step back. Everyone should at least have the contact details of their ward councillor or PR councillor. And if you don't, that's something very important that you should get a hold of. By law, they have to have that available. You should be able to contact them. I often say to people, they're not going to be able to do it with every single one, but I often say to people, sometimes just to surprise them and ask them for a cup of coffee so you can get a sense of what's actually happening in your community. But even if you can't do that, join the WhatsApp groups. Make sure that you know when these meetings are happening so that you can have a say. Don't complain about, there's a burst water pipe or this isn't happening or the verges haven't been cut. When you have these at your fingertips and are available, you just need to process and come into the system. There's also things like community police forums. Again, many people don't know that their own police stations where they are actually the money that they get and how resourced they are is determined by the interaction of that particular community. Community policing boards can only have people that are ordinary citizens on them. So you need to, for your community, it doesn't even have to be you, organize your street, find somebody 2 streets over who might be interested and support them and get to the meetings and make sure that they get elected. And that way you can help the police in your area be able to know hotspots, targets, just in case there's crime rate and things, but you can also have an input and also see what's happening. And then you have things like the UIP, which is Urban Integrated Precincts. Again, many of these are usually done by businesses. So wherever you are in a place, and I live in Durban, for example, when you have a lot of hotels, a lot of businesses, you'll often find those businesses get together and they form a UIP. Again, it's something that is part of municipal bylaws, but people also do it for where they live. So where I live too, we got together, a couple of thousand of us, we decided that we wanted to form one for our neighborhood. We did that, and it gets money back, a percentage of your money back on your rates for you to be able to run the things that you think are important. So we have a committee that deals with the indigenous plants in the area and a lot of different things. But the point is you have all these processes which you can go and sit on bylaw that you can take and participate in very easily. And there's a whole bunch of others, but just these are some of the very first and easiest one is probably your ward committee.
Yeah. So if you were to say, if I'm living in a small town, let's say in a rural province, and I'm tired of my municipality, just falling apart, what are the 5 things that I could do as a young person to get more involved and try to make like a meaningful difference in that municipality?
Well, again, I think it's people mustn't also feel like they all must take all of this individually on. There's lots of people in our communities that also might be the right kind of people that you might just need to talk to. But I think just very easily is to first get to know what is actually happening in your community. And the best places I always say is the local police station. Have you ever gone down to your local police station and actually meet the people there, found out what's needed, found out when the CPF meetings are? Have you was your major counsellor, or have you contacted your counsellor, like I've said? Libraries are another one. People don't understand that libraries are also resourced by the number of people that actually have library cards. So I encourage lots of parents to take themselves and their kids to get library cards where they live, because that means that your library will be stronger. And libraries are one of the last places that we have in our municipalities, and it's a direct municipal function where people have free public space to do a lot of different things. And I think that we should be protecting them a lot more. But that's something that's very easy that you could do. You could start literally a campaign even in just your own neighborhood or around the schools to get them to sign up. It's completely free, but it will help your neighborhood and it will help your community and the kids in it. The other is attending council meetings. And I know that this seems laborious because not everyone has the time. But if you're really interested in know what's going on in your municipality, if you're worried about the tariffs, if you're worried about the rates that are going up, you should consider actually going and sitting on a council meeting. You can also apply to go and sit on committee meetings. Again, the council, parliament, the legislatures, these are all the people's houses. You all have the right as citizens to be able to go to any of these meetings. For some of them, you might have to apply to the speaker, but it's very rare that they say no. For a lot of them, you just arrive with your ID and you're allowed to actually go in and sit in the gallery and listen to what the people that you put into power are doing. The other thing that I think people don't realize is you don't have to wait for the local party to get your councillor to speak to you. If you've been contacting them and they haven't been getting back to me, there are also the laws that you can then follow, particularly one around being able to get to the speaker and making sure that they then can intervene on your behalf. So I think as South Africans, we also gotten into this behavioral cultural mindset of waiting for politicians and not knowing that they are actually there at our sending, they are our representatives and they need to answer back to us. If you've never heard of or never seen a report back meeting in your community and there are lots of issues, it might be litter, illegal dumping, water, those are things that you can demand that must actually happen. But until we actually play that role, politicians aren't going to just do it. So this is why we do a lot of work of showing people the different ways that they can do this, because until we had a culture where we are constantly asking for it, we won't get the kind of democracy that we want. And I think people often forget that strong democracies are strong because citizens know how to keep their politicians accountable and make them do the work that they do. They don't become strong just because politicians decide to be good and do the right thing all the time.
Yeah. And there's this other issue that I wanted to speak to you about. I think one of the things that come up with why municipalities are doing badly is because there's a lack of professionalization of staff. And I'm wondering, you having worked in an oversight role for local government before and having worked in local government yourself, do you think that there's a lack of skilled staff because municipalities can't attract them, or because it might be convenient for municipalities not to have skilled staff in place if the purpose of some people in the municipality is to loot?
I think corruption has become a huge issue in our country. It's probably responsible for the most impact at a local government election and level of impacting service delivery. And I think it's a broader question. I think, yes, there are some people who certainly will employ people that probably don't have the requisite skills in order to be able to manipulate them or to create a patronage system where they can then do whatever they want to municipalities. I do also think that we just have a lack of people that want to go into public service in this country because it's been made to seem like such muddy waters. And so we have no shortage of really amazing South Africans that I think could go into public service, particularly at the local government level, but we need to make it more attractive. And that has to be something that is spoken of quite strongly about the professionalization of our public services. And then I also think there are really great public administrators in our systems, but because of the way that our politics and our electoral system has been managed, often you might have a really strong technocrat but a political principal who wants things done a certain way. And we've bastardized the system in that we've made the political principle sometimes stronger, which is why I think we need to be advocating towards having a complete separation to some degree, and making sure that we have longevity and sustainability of the people that we put in public services who don't have to be beholden to whoever the next minister or the next mayor is every kind of few years when there's instability, because I feel that that's also something that creates these kinds of problems. But I would also recommend that we actually have a professional skills academy for people that want to go into public service. I'm not quite sure why we don't have one to the extent that we should in South Africa. We obviously have like schools of governance and all of that, but those aren't accessible to every single person. But having been a councillor, having been someone who sat on COPTA, in a province where for many years we only had one municipality in all of them that ever had a clean audit, you just see that the problems are compounded at every level, from the political side, the professional side, and then particularly from citizens themselves as well. So until we get all three going, it doesn't really matter what we try to do. We're not going to get the kind of democracy that we want.
And then the last question I just wanted to ask you was, I don't know if you've seen there's a lot of these small towns where citizens have kind of decided to go to the High Court to try and take over service delivery functions in these towns. I'm wondering, what do you make of these kind of extreme examples of public participation, if we can call them that?
I love it. If I had the ability, I would love to actually take all the knowledge that I've had of campaigning and running political campaigns and say to anyone in any city that if they'd like some of that knowledge, share this for free, and encourage them to go and run either as councillors or group together as, I don't know, save City B, or whatever niche thing. Maybe you just want to be someone who wants to protect the fauna, and that's just part of that particular city. I think that the more participation we have, the better. And I know that we have growing pains because you can also have a lot of people just running for their own nefarious reasons, but I would rather that than to take away the options of having people who genuinely care about their communities being able to run. And that's a great example of how our constitution was actually made. It was so that those particular things could happen, so that people didn't have to be forced to be part of political parties to be able to take on issues. And so I went to Rhodes University, and I see that was one of the first places where you had an association of Makanda, and now I think with the university actually making sure that they can get service delivery, not just for the university, but for the entire city. And that's great because they're not waiting for politicians. They found parts of the law that actually can make this happen, and they're doing what citizens who are active should be able to do. So I think it's great. And I think that they will probably be held more accountable by the people that vote them in because they aren't political parties. And so maybe that's a route that we should be taking. And it's not that uncommon around the rest of the world. It's just that our democracy is still very young. It's so, as it seems like it's a very new thing, but it's something that happens everywhere else in the world quite frequently.
I think it's been a really, really insightful conversation, Mbali. Thank you for making time to speak to us. As always, we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and I think it's great what you guys are doing. And I suppose I'll see you at the next lectures.